If you are experiencing frustrations using logic to explain your behavior to people in your life because it's getting you nowhere, then perhaps logic is not the correct approach to be using. I'll suggest that there's a better way to broach the subject, and that is to find a common ground. I'm hoping this will help you to not only better understand the reactions of the people you care about, but perhaps this can also serve as a way to actually make some inroads with them. Now, if there's one thing that us humans have in common is that throughout our lives we are motivated to avoid disaster and seek thriving. When it comes to friends and family, we agree that having none at all is considered a disaster because you have no support structure. Therefore, having as many as possible, especially loyal ones, helps you to thrive. We can all agree that it's wise to keep moving our career and finances forward from where we start out as a 17-year-old to avoid disaster. We assume that keeping up with the news through the mass media will make us better informed about our world and much more able to thrive, especially when there are multiple viewpoints for us to ponder. It appears smart to all of us to obey the government and their laws because it's all generally designed to benefit us and make our lives better. Terrible results will come from us looking after all of our own health care. Of course, we rely on the systems to keep us alive and healthy. Conventional wisdom dictates that the police are there to protect us so we can go about our business. If we have conflicts with the police, it's still better to obey them. And then you can get it sorted out in court later on, as there's a dependable system for that. A really disastrous situation in our society is to have zero education, so we all agree that the more education, the better. We've always known that vaccinations are there for our own good and for the benefits of society as a whole, having kept us free from diseases. So now here is a situation that we're in. The familiar disaster thriving paradigm has been completely flipped backwards to what we've always known to be normal. Only a small minority of people flipped with it to stay oriented to thriving. So once this shock event occurred, most people are still moving in the familiar direction, but now unknowingly it's towards disaster. The few people who they see moving opposite to normal, they figure are completely crazy. Many report losing some or all of their lifelong friends and family. Their careers are derailed, and they've even been fired out of their entire industry. They've had to assume that government does not have their best interests in mind, and the mainstream media they now ignore because they see no separation from the government wishes. The healthcare system has become unavailable to them either through mistrust or even that they're locked out. Protesters are ignoring the police in the streets. They have realized that the entire education system is politicized and have even had to remove their children. And lastly, those familiar vaccinations that we've always trusted appear to have been repurposed for something very sinister. Now, most of the population have not understood what has actually taken place, and of course, they view you as going in the wrong direction. They have no idea that from your perspective, it's them who are marching towards certain disaster, them not realizing that their comfort zone is now their enemy. They simply will not contemplate any kind of U-turn. So now we find ourselves at the advent, for those of us in the know, of the completely expected health pass. Suddenly, this has woken up many otherwise complacently obedient people who have also now switched direction. Protests have thousands instead of hundreds, even upwards of hundreds of thousands in some countries. Non-conforming businesses are signing up on apps to the point where they're crashing the system, letting people know that they will not enforce any health pass. To summarize, I'm hoping that this shows a different way to agree with people instead of using just logic, such as the size of a pore in a cloth mask compared to the size of a virus particle. That's just not going to work because of the polar opposite worldviews. We can both understand the massive friction that people will face were they to adopt your view of where disaster lies. Perhaps if you show them this video, they can understand why you are willingly taking on these hardships in the name of thriving.